This podcast is about the Inca, and here on the map you can see where the Inca based their capital, the city of Cusco, which of course today is still a very, very important city for Peru. The Inca probably originally came from somewhere else, migrated to the area of Cusco, but this is where they built their capital and from where they ruled much of the Pacific coast of South America. Exactly where Cusco is also important. Cusco is, as you can see by this map, up in the mountains, and much of the Inca Empire is going to be spread throughout the Andes. And I think this makes the Inca even more impressive than just kind of judging them on the size of their empire. They built their empire in very unhospitable conditions. The coast is actually very dry, super, super dry, one of the driest places on Earth. And once you get beyond that desert, it just starts going up and up and up. And the Andes Mountains do not offer many chances for farming. Obviously, they're going to have to build lots of terraces to farm. And that'll also complicate their road system. Incan roads, there's going to be thousands of miles of Incan roads. And they're going to build tunnels, bridges, various other kind of adaptations to get around this huge, huge obstacle of the Andes. So where do we begin? We're going to begin at the point where the Inca start to become important, and that's 1438. The Inca, who were in Cusco, were essentially kind of a mildly powerful group. They weren't dominating anyone else. They were actually paying tribute to a group named the Chanca. The Chanca were the real dominant power in the region. And essentially, in 1438, the Chanca decide that they're going to invade Cusco. And really, no one is very happy about this. Least of all, the leader of the Inca, the king. He actually abandons Cusco. He kind of just flees. He and his son, who was supposed to take over, both just left. They abandoned their people. And so who takes over? Well, the younger son, Pachacuti. And Pachacuti not only picks up kind of the reins, he leads the Inca to victory over the Chanca. It went from a scenario where the Inca had been paying tribute to the Chanca to a situation where they now defeat the Chanca and begin to take tribute from them as well as others. And Pachacuti, he kind of runs with it. He doesn't stop with the Chanca. He expands beyond the Valley of Cusco, beyond the region of the Chanca, and begins to create really an Inca empire. And he's not the first king of the Inca, he's the 8th king, but he is for us the most important. He is the guy who gets the ball rolling for the Inca. This statue here is in Cusco today, and he is still looked at as an important person for the history of Andean peoples. The Inca expand rapidly. As you can see on this next map, they begin in Cusco and slowly extend their empire north as well as south. And in fact, their empire is going to stretch really from southern Colombia through all of Ecuador, through all of Peru, into parts of Bolivia, parts of Argentina, and down through Chile. And what do when they create that empire? They begin to link it with roads as well as other things. What's important to know is how the Inca conquered. There was really 3 different steps to the way they conquered. At first, they came in and they made promises to groups. They said, look, if you join us, we'll take care of you, we'll provide for you in times of need, we'll protect you from other groups, and you really will be better off joining us. Step 2 was a little more direct. Step 2 consisted of threats. The Inca would essentially start to threaten groups whom they wanted to conquer, whom they wanted to rule over. If you don't join us, we'll destroy you. If you don't join us, you will be sorry. And this was pretty effective. Oftentimes, people kind of really saw the writing on the wall, that the Inca were more powerful. The Inca essentially didn't lose battles, and it was not a good idea to oppose them. People would have heard about the powerful Inca, and they knew that their best bet was perhaps maybe not to fight. And sometimes step 2 was not convincing enough for some groups, so you move on to step 3 here, and the Inca would use absolutely lethal force. As I just said, the Inca really did not lose conflicts, at least not before the Spanish arrived, and they would really decimate someone who opposed them. So this essentially was a bad idea. It could lead to kind of worse treatment under the Inca as they finally took you over. And really, the methods that the Inca used were pretty brutal. Whereas the Mexica were looking to take captives, albeit to sacrifice later, the Inca just were there to kill on the battlefield. So let's take a look at some Inca weapons, some things they would use as they fought in wars. And this one alone is not deadly. This is called a bola. And essentially, this is something that you would hold above your head, swing, and aim at someone's legs. It would tie their legs up, essentially, and they would fall to the ground. And that's when one of the next steps would come in. And in many of those cases, the next step was essentially getting hit with an Incan axe or an Incan club. Those were two of their kind of most commonly used weapons, and these would be made of copper at times, other times stone. And yes, as you can imagine, some of these items that you see right here were quite deadly. And so your average Inca warrior, he would always have some type of club or axe, and he probably would also have some type of wooden shield, maybe cotton armor, woven very tightly to protect against weapons that other Andean peoples would have used, not Spaniards. One of the weapons that cotton armor could kind of protect you from was a sling simply using a rock or a clay kind of projectile. If these hit you in the chest and you had cotton armor on, it would kind of take some of the impact away. It wouldn't hurt as bad. If a sling were to hit you in the face, well, the cotton armor on your chest would do a lot less good. So the sling was another key distance weapon for the Inca. But kind of interestingly, maybe our most stereotypical weapon for indigenous people, the bow and arrow, the Inca really did not use the bow and arrow very much at all. In fact, it was only late in their empire that they learned about it from a group whom they had conquered. And so to review, this podcast quickly examined kind of the start of the Inca, as well as where they expanded and the military styles that they used to expand. This podcast will be continued in the next one that will look at how they managed the empire, as well as some types of Inca culture.